Welcome, Amazing Race fans, to Jason's Amazing Race Recap 37. This is episode number 1. All right, after doing some season swaps with season 35 and 36, we get a brand new season to watch. CBS aired episode 1 of that new season on March 5th, 2025, season 37. I'm excited to have yet another season to keep us entertained. So let's talk about what happened on that hour and a half episode. I'm ready to be your host, Jason Mogul. Based on comments that I've read online, it seems Amazing Race fans are clamoring for a season like they used to be in the old days. Teams booking their own flights, intense competition, new locations, twists on how the game is played. Personally, I'd like to see a return to a more raw and gritty game, like when racers had to sleep outside in the rain or cold to get their next clue, and when they actually traveled all around the globe during the race. So it will be exciting to see what's in store for the racers this season. Season 37 has 14 teams traveling to 9 countries, 29,000 miles, and visiting a new country, Bulgaria. That would make 102 countries visited by the Amazing Race, and Phil promises some new twists, like the fork in the road. With the race starting with 14 teams, that makes this season the first to have that many. The most number of teams ever to start the Amazing Race season. 11 teams are the norm, with 28 of the past 37 seasons having 11 teams. There have been 5 seasons with 12 teams, 2 seasons with 13 teams. The fewest was Season 8 Family Edition, with 10 teams, but each of those had 4 people on them. Let's take a look at the 14 teams, in no particular order. There's Brett and Mark, Las Vegas performers, who look to be in good physical shape, very athletic. Next are Mark and Larry, 2 retired firefighters and longtime friends who love to ride motorcycles, mature and experienced in life. Then there's Nick and Mike, 2 brothers that have applied to the Amazing Race for 7 years and are now actually on the show. Carson and Jack are gamers, which means they could be good at game strategy. Alyssa and Josiah are anesthesia nurses, accomplished and skilled. Next is Scott and Lori. They're a married couple with 8 kids. I can only imagine the challenges they've faced every day with such a large family. Han and Holden are siblings, looking to win it all. Jonathan and Anna are a married couple who had some relationship issues in the past, but are now back together. Bernie and Kerrigan are friends from Dallas and Denver, who are a competitive team seeking victory. Jackie and Lauren are sisters who are motivated to race for their mom, who had dreamed of adventure in her retirement, but instead suffered from Parkinson's. Jeff and Jeff are a father-son team from Missouri. The older Jeff is called Pops, although he hardly looks like he's ready for the rocking chair. Both are solid muscle from working as lumberjacks. Melinda and Erica are a mother-daughter team ready to travel the world. Courtney and Jasmine are nurses from North Carolina. And the final team is Ernest and Bridget, a father-daughter team. Okay, those are the 14 teams we will see this season. The race started in Los Angeles with the 14 teams whooping and hollering as they ran up to the starting line to see Phil. As is his trademark, Phil raised his eyebrow, lowered his hand, and off they went to their backpacks to get their first clue, finding out they were headed to Hong Kong, China to find the large bronze Buddha as their first destination. China is the most visited country on the Amazing Race and a popular first destination. Teams drove themselves to LAX, and most seemed to find their cars, the parking garage, and the marked ticket counter without too much trouble or drama. There were 2 flights to Hong Kong, each an hour apart. That's a significant gap in time, so being on the first flight is an important advantage. 4 teams were able to secure a spot on the first flight. Jonathan and Anna were so happy to secure the first tickets that Jonathan ran up and down the ticket line. I don't think I've ever seen anyone so happy to get on the first flight. Once they arrived in Hong Kong, Jonathan and Anna were the first to arrive at the bottom of the stairs leading up to the Buddha, with Carson and Jack close behind. I love it. A set of stairs to start the race. The Amazing Race loves to have racers climb hills and stairs. Tires them out right from the beginning. Did you notice that some teams left their backpacks in the taxis and others climbed the stairs with their backpacks? That's an early decision that teams had to make. Either risk losing their backpacks by leaving them in the taxi, or take them with them and haul them up all those stairs, only to return to the same taxi. What would you have done in that situation? Last to arrive were Jackie and Lauren, who had decided to carry their backpacks up and down those stairs. The clue at the Buddha told the racers to take Sun Ferry and go to Chung Chau to find their next clue. Jonathan and Anna arrived first and were the only team to get on the first ferry, leaving the other teams behind. Jonathan even said if they got on that first ferry alone, it would be game over. Perhaps he was exaggerating a bit, but it did seem premature to celebrate a victory when you hadn't even reached the first roadblock yet. They were on a high, being able to get such a large lead over all the other teams. There, they faced the first roadblock of the season, climbing a bamboo tower to retrieve their next clue from the top. They decided to have Anna do it since they had such a large lead on the other teams. I thought that was a smart move and showed some strategic thinking. We will see if that pays off later with other roadblocks. Then it began to rain and made the tower slippery, but Anna completed the roadblock without too much difficulty. They made their way back to the ferry for the return trip, and then were off to Loc Quan Park to face the fork in the road, well out in front of the other teams, just cruising along. But we know large leads are deceptive. Over and over in past seasons, we've seen teams get big heads when they get a large lead, only for them to get deflated. And then it happened. To their dismay, they found out the next ferry was in 30 minutes. But instead of wasting time, they went off to find some info about their next destination. Again, a smart strategic move in my opinion. 12 other teams arrived at the roadblock and climbed the tower. Jackie and Lauren were well behind the others. The rain caused some issues, but not for Brett. Remember, he is a Las Vegas performer, and he is made for this kind of task. He just kind of moved his arms and legs up and down and seemed to float to the top, like invisible helium balloons were tied to his belt. Zoop! He just zoomed right up there. That was impressive. After all the hustle, racing, running, all of those 12 teams made it back to the ferry to catch up with Jonathan and Anna, who were still waiting to get tickets. Poof! There goes their large lead. Jonathan and Anna were just sick with disappointment. The season's first equalizer. And despite their large lead and strategic thinking, they boarded the return ferry in first place, but arrived at the fork in the road in 8th place. How did that happen? Wow, what a turnaround. Just another example of the Amazing Race humbling even the best of teams. Jackie and Lauren finally arrived at the roadblock, and Lauren had trouble climbing the tower. But through perseverance and sheer determination, she made it. Extremely proud of her accomplishment when she got to the top. Even the locals cheered for her. She was lowered back down, lying sideways, looking like a bundle of laundry. That made me chuckle out loud. Once on the ground, they celebrated again. You know, I was thinking to myself, go ladies, go. Celebrate later. There's a race to run. Every season, it seems someone makes a comment to go slow and steady. Jackie and Lauren didn't say it, although they race that way, but it was Erica who said it. I say no, not slow and steady, not slow, not erratic, not frantic, but it should be fast and steady. Go fast and steady. Every time I hear slow and steady, I cringe. And meanwhile, Courtney and Jasmine just couldn't catch a break while hailing a taxi once they got off the return ferry. 7 taxi drivers told them they didn't know how to get to Loc Quan Park before they finally found one who could. That put them way behind. All right, Now, what about this fork in the road we heard so much about? Okay, at the fork in the road, teams had to make a choice. The choices were listed at the top of the roadblock sign. Either pick dance or pick sing. That determined which path they went down. Only 7 teams could go down each path, and the last team to arrive at the pit stop on each path would be eliminated. Which means there were 2 eliminations in leg 1, quickly taking the 14 teams to 12. Dancing and singing are usually team killers. Either one is hard, at least for me, so picking the right path was crucial. Dance involved doing a choreographed dance while wearing a dragon costume. One person worked the head, and the other worked the tail. Teamwork between the head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon was key. The movements reminded me of the relationship between a quarterback and a running back in football. Gotta know what the other one is doing to make it work. Singing was both correctly pronouncing the lyrics and pairing it with specific movements. Personally, I would have picked dance. The thing about the tasks on The Amazing Race is that at first, some seem very intimidating and impossible, causing some teams to fall into almost despair or hopelessness. But with focus, study, and practice, they are figure-outable, and I think that's the case with these 2 tasks. One thing I kept waiting for was someone to use the old joke about, if you come to a fork in the road, take it. But no one did, to my surprise. The fork in the road served as a way to jumble the order of the teams. There were lots of variables to these tasks, and no matter what order they arrived, they didn't leave in the same order. What about the strategy teams should consider when facing the fork in the road? The only strategy I saw was to pick the task you would excel at. Not much more to it than that. Not too complicated. However, one observation I made was that with Jackie and Lauren so far behind, that made for a unique situation. The path selected by the next to last team would play an important role for all of the teams. In this case, Courtney and Jasmine picked dance, which meant that all of the sing path teams would pretty much be guaranteed not to be eliminated because they would all finish before Jackie and Lauren. The only choice Jackie and Lauren would have would be to pick sing, the only option to them, as they would be the last team. If, on the other hand, Courtney and Jasmine had picked the sing path, then all of the other dance teams would probably not be eliminated because, again, Jackie and Lauren would have to pick dance and be the last on that path. Whichever path Courtney and Jasmine picked, those 7 teams had to duke it out not to be last. In this case, it was the dance path. The sing path, I think those teams got lucky. The dance looked to be faster of the 2. Teams showed up from the dance path sooner than from the sing path. But as I just described, the sing teams actually had the easier path, because no matter the order, they all had a great chance of beating Jackie and Lauren. Once complete, teams made their way to the pit stop. Did you notice that teams had to climb more stairs and hills to get to the pit stop? Love it, love it, love it. In the end, Carson and Jack won the leg on the dance path and got $3,000. So too did Alyssa and Josiah on the sing path. So how did Jonathan and Anna do after starting off so strongly? They battled their way back from 8th to finish 2nd on the sing path. Jonathan seemed upset they didn't finish first, and I sensed we may see more of that in the future. He appears to me to believe that if he's not first, he is last. Jackie and Lauren arrived last and were eliminated. Their slow pace just did not allow them to keep up with the others. But I will say that they had what I consider to be the number 1 and most important skill for the Amazing Race, and that is courage. Despite the fear of stairs, Jackie came onto the race anyway, knowing that there would be stairs to climb and descend. Lauren showed great courage at the bamboo tower, pushing herself to the limits. For that, I admire them. Mark and Larry, the retired firefighters, were also eliminated. They were bottom of the pack racers most of the leg, but it was not obvious they would be eliminated until the very end. The dance routine did them in, and they lost in the search for the pit stop mat. Getting eliminated first is the worst place to be eliminated because we just don't get to know those racers very well. Just not enough airtime for that. And here are some more observations I made during this episode. Backpacks. I always look at the backpacks that the teams bring. I just can't help it. In past seasons, I've seen some rather large ones that teams struggled with, and I've seen some small ones too. On this season, I saw mostly medium-sized backpacks. But I noticed that Carson and Jack only had one backpack between them. That's an interesting choice, and I wonder if they'll talk about that later. Team colors. At the start of the race, teams had specific colored shirts they were wearing, but by the time they arrived at the pit stop, some, like Erica and Jeff, had different colored shirts on than when they started the race. I wonder if there's a rule on how long teams have to wear their assigned color. Politeness. On the first leg, teams were polite with each other and with the other teams. There wasn't any negative emotions that I saw. That's not so unusual per the theory of group dynamics, but we'll see how long that phase lasts as the pressure and the competition ratchet up. Stairs and hills. I mentioned it before, but having racers climb and descend the stairs early did have some impact later. At least one racer from each team had to climb the bamboo tower, and I'm sure they felt it in the form of fatigued or shaky muscles. Either Nick or Mike had leg cramps after the dance task, and it affected their speed on the way to the mat. I believe the stairs contributed to that. It wouldn't surprise me if behind the scenes, some racers had soreness, which caused them to have difficulty sleeping, and then still feeling it the next morning in their thighs. We've all been there. Fork in the road. So what happens now with the fork in the road? How and in what order will teams leave the pit stop for the next leg? Will there be additional ramifications of Mark and Larry's path choice? We'll find out soon enough, I suppose, but I am interested in seeing how that goes. Lack of the metagame. I didn't see any rule bending or deceptions yet, but in upcoming episodes, I'll be looking for those who try to get an advantage by playing the game beyond the game. And the upcoming intersection. We've seen this before, like in Season 10, so the intersection will mix things up when that's introduced. Okay, now the big question. So, after just one episode, do you have any guesses as to who will win the $1 million? Carson and Jack were the first out of the gate at the start line, and they ran a strong leg. Maybe it's them. Or Jonathan and Anna will get back on track and lead the pack. Or we'll be at the quiet and reserved Han and Holden, which we didn't see much of in the first leg. So for me, I'm going to pick Scott and Lori as my predicted winners. While they were middle of the pack racers in leg one, I see them finding a way to hang around to win. But whenever I predict the winner during the first leg, I am always wrong. But we will see. That's all for this recap of Season 37, Episode 1. Thanks for listening, and join me in a week for a recap of Episode 2. And if you can't wait that long, check out my companion podcast called Jason's Amazing Race Insights, where I discuss themes that cut across the first 36 seasons of The Amazing Race. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Either way, see you soon.